Good morning, everyone. Happy Mother's Day. I am thrilled to celebrate the power of the sacred feminine with you. Today we have a story about Maja Čapek and the origins of the flower ceremony. This material drawn the following story about the origin of flower communion from the writings of someone you may know, Reverend Daniel Harpe, who served for many years as the Minister of Religious Exploration at Palo Alto. So, UU Palo Alto. So let me tell you about Maja. Maja Čapek came to the United States from what we now call the Czech Republic, and she came here as a young woman a little over 100 years ago. Let's see that on the map. There we have it. So she came here to the United States from the Czech Republic, and here Maja became a librarian while working in the Webster branch of the New York Public Library, and she met a man named Norbert Čapek, who had come to America from the same place, and they fell in love and they got married in 1917. So let's take a look at that lovely couple. There they are. Norbert, yes, Norbert was a Baptist minister, but he was beginning to doubt his Baptist beliefs. Maja encouraged his doubts, and soon he had resigned from the Baptist ministry, and they had both stopped going to church. One day their children said, we really want to go to Sunday school. So they chose a church to try, and when they came back, their parents asked what they had learned. And when they heard it, it sounded like the old religion that they had rejected. So Norbert said that he wished the children would try a different Sunday school the next week. So this went on for weeks, and the children would go off to a new Sunday school, and they would tell them what they learned when they got home, and Norbert would say, please try another church. So it kept going that way until one Sunday they went to a Unitarian church. And when they came home and told their father what they had learned, Norbert encouraged them to return to that church. Soon, Norbert and Maja decided that they too would like to go to the Unitarian church, and they liked it so much that they became members. Now, at about this time, their homeland became an independent country, as we know, called Czechoslovakia. And the Čapeks returned to their homeland to start a Unitarian church there in the city of Prague. Most of the members of their new church had left other religions to become Unitarians. Many of these people did not want to be reminded of the religion that they left behind. In 1923, Norbert and Maja Čapek decided to create a new ritual for their congregation, a flower celebration, where everyone exchanged flowers to symbolize how all human beings are connected. They didn't call it a flower communion like we do. They called it a flower celebration. So one Sunday in 1923, as I said, Maja asked everyone in the congregation to bring a flower to worship service. When the people arrived on Sunday morning, all the flowers were gathered together in vases, hundreds of colorful flowers all over the front of the church. Norbert Čapek told the congregation that the flowers were symbols of what it means to be a human being. Every flower was different. Every flower was beautiful in its own way. And at the end of worship service, everyone went up and took a flower, a different flower from the one they had brought, and took that flower home with them as a symbol of their connection with everyone else in the congregation. Dan Harpe writes that during flower celebration, each flower is of value, and no flower will be discarded, ignored, or rejected. Each flower is unique, each flower is different, yet all the flowers are welcome. This is an obvious metaphor for how we hope to treat each other as human beings, and we aim to see the value in each human being. We try to live our lives so that no human being is discarded or ignored or discriminated against or rejected. Now, Maja Čapek was ordained as a Unitarian minister in 1926. Within 10 years, the Čapek's new Unitarian church in Prague grew to 3,000 members, the largest Unitarian church in the world. When Nazi Germany started the Second World War, obviously it was a terrible time in Europe, and Maja Čapek came to the United States to help raise monies for refugees. While she was in the United States, the Nazis invaded Czechoslovakia and arrested her husband, Norbert, because he spoke out for freedom. They put him in the concentration camp at Dachau, where he died in 1942. Maja worked with the United Nations Relief and Rehabilitation Agency throughout the war. She didn't learn of Norbert's death until after the war ended in 1945. After the war, Maja stayed in the United States. She was deeply saddened by her husband's death, and she continued her relief work and also brought the joyous flower celebration to us here in the United States. Each year, when we have our own flower communion, we give thanks to Reverend Maja Čapek for sharing this wonderful ritual with us here in the United States. Maja Čapek passed away on December 2nd, 1966. So today, we remember Maja Čapek and Norbert Čapek as we continue this meaningful tradition. Thank you. If anyone wants to know, we do have childcare is available if you need it. And I will turn it over to Jeremy now. Thank you so much.
This is the original Mother's Day Proclamation by Julia Ward Howe from 1870. In the United States, the founding of Mother's Day is usually attributed to Anna Jarvis of Philadelphia, who in 1907 began a campaign to have Mother's Day officially recognized. In 1914, President Woodrow Wilson officially proclaimed the holiday as a public expression of love and reverence for all mothers. But the movement to establish Mother's Day in the United States started long before this. One of the early proponents was a Unitarian abolitionist, feminist, and poet, Julia Ward Howe, who called for a Mother's Day of Peace in 1870. Howe dedicated the celebration to the eradication of war and organized festivities in Boston for years, along with other social activist women at the time. Here is Howe's original Mother's Day Proclamation from 1870. Now imagine for a moment it's 1870, and the country has been healing for only 5 years of a horrible, horrible war where over 700,000 people died, millions more maimed, a tragedy of untold proportion. Arise, all women who have hearts, whether your baptism is that of water or of tears. Say firmly, we do not have great questions decided by irrelevant agencies. Our husbands shall not come to us reeking with carnage for caress and applause. Our sons shall not be taken from us to unlearn all that we have been able to teach them of charity, mercy, and patience. We women of one country will be too tender of those of another country to allow our sons to be trained to injure theirs. From the bosom of the devastated earth, a voice goes up with our own. It says, disarm, disarm. The sword is not the balance of justice. Blood does not wipe out dishonor, nor violence indicate possession. As men have often forsaken the plow and anvil at the summons of war, let women now leave all that may be left of home for a great and earnest day of council. Let them meet first as women to bewail and commemorate the dead. Let them solemnly take counsel with each other as to the means whereby the great human family can live in peace, each learning after his own time the sacred impress, not of Caesar, but of God. In the name of womanhood and of humanity, I earnestly ask a general Congress of women, without limit of nationality, may be appointed and held at some place deemed most convenient at the earliest period consistent with its objects, to promote the alliance of the different nationalities, the amicable settlement of international questions, the great and general interest of peace.
What would happen if women around the globe, or even just in our country here in the United States, gathered together to bewail the wanton destruction of life and to promote the general interests of peace? Not just peace as in the absence of war, but peace as in the presence of justice. What might happen if all women who care about what is happening in our world or just in our country dropped everything for one day to grieve and to organize? This was the vision at the root of the modern Mother's Day movement in the United States. And while I love getting and giving flowers on Mother's Day, I love this radical vision of the early proponents of Mother's Day even more. But the cool thing is, we can have flowers and the radical roots of Mother's Day. That's what we are doing today. Once, when I was in my 20s, a woman that I'd invited over for dinner told me apologetically when she arrived empty-handed, "I wanted to bring flowers, but I knew you were a feminist." I was totally stunned. Feminism isn't anti-flower, it's pro-justice. Just this week, when I mentioned we were doing flower communion on Mother's Day, a UU colleague commented that she found that ironic, given that Anna Jarvis, credited with founding Mother's Day, later tried to abolish the holiday because it had become so commercialized. Anna Jarvis was outraged that the floral industry in particular used the occasion of Mother's Day to turn enormous profits. But Anna Jarvis wasn't against flowers. In fact, she started the tradition of wearing flowers on Mother's Day in honor of mothers. What she was against was the rapid commercialization of it all, the dilution of the deeper import and meaning of the day for the sake of profit. So I don't think it's ironic to celebrate Flower Communion and Mother's Day on the same day. I think it helps us draw out some pretty cool meanings that are especially relevant for our times. And I'll see if I can make some of those connections here, and you can let me know after the service what you think. So you can see in the slides, Anna Jarvis and her mother Anne. Anna Jarvis did not have any children of her own. She spent years advocating for an official Mother's Day to carry on the legacy of her mother, Anne Reeves Jarvis, who I'll call Mother Anne just for clarity. The Jarvises were Methodist. When Anna was growing up, the Jarvis family lived in the region of West Virginia. Due to poverty, lack of access to medicine, and unsanitary conditions, the child mortality rate in that area was extremely high. Mother Anne gave birth to 12 children, but 8 of them died when they were very young, all before the age of 7. Anna was one of the 4 who survived. To address the high child mortality rate, Mother Ann Jarvis organized Mother's Day work clubs in the 1850s to promote sanitation and improve medical care for her community. These Mother's Day work clubs provided medicine, nursing care, and other forms of support to those in need in her community. During the Civil War, Mother Ann encouraged the women in these clubs not to allow the war to sever the ties of love and goodwill. Club members nursed both Union and Confederate soldiers. This commitment to care for all people without exception, even in times of extreme polarization and violence, reminds me of the faithful action that our Universalist faith calls us to in the name of love. Not a love only for biological kin or for those of the same camp, but a love for all. A love that liberates, transforms, and saves. Mother Ann Jarvis longed for a memorial Mother's Day that would honor, in her words, the matchless service mothers render to humanity in every field of life. When she died in 1905, her daughter Anna promised to establish that day, and indeed she did. Mother Ann Jarvis knew the other well-known early proponent of Mother's Day, who Paula introduced us to already, Unitarian, abolitionist, feminist, and social activist Julia Ward Howe. Julia sought to establish a Mother's Day of peace, as we've heard, in the Boston area in the 1870s. Julia Ward Howe is best known for writing the words for the Battle Hymn of the Republic, which is a patriotic Civil War song that equates the Union and the cause of freedom with the advance of God's kingdom on earth. An abolitionist and a feminist, Julia never gave up the ideal of freedom, but she did grow increasingly disturbed by the carnage of war, both at home and abroad. Throughout her life, Julia fought against the stringent patriarchal confines of her own family, first her father's and then her husband's. Even her own children, she had 6 of them, pressured her to give up her public life to the Victorian dictates of domesticity. The idea, which was really only for white women, that women's proper role is tending exclusively to husband, children, and home. This idea appears to be resurging today, publicly espoused by some of our nation's top leaders, and has the same race and class connotations and limitations as it did in the 19th century. During Julia Ward Howe's time, women weren't allowed to vote and generally did not have the right to inherit property or control the money they made. It was very difficult for a woman to obtain a divorce, and if there was a divorce, very difficult for the mother to win custody. As Julia grew more involved in the struggle for women's rights and suffrage, she established a strong network of socially active women who supported her public work. Her faith in the power of women to collectively drive social change grew. In 1870, witnessing the devastation of war, she sought to harness the grief of women who had lost spouses and children, turning it into collective action for peace. For Julia Ward Howe, Mother's Peace Day would bring women together across various lines of difference to grieve and to organize, to work together for peace, not by means of the sword, but through the collective power of care, manifest as social activism. Contemporary poet Rosemary Watola Traumer, also known as Word Woman for her daily poems, which I highly recommend if you want to read a poem every day, she recently shared this short poem titled One Great Danger. Bullets, bombs, blades. But what does the most damage? Indifference. This poem arrived in my inbox as I was working on this sermon, and it occurred to me that it expresses a core meaning of Mother's Day as it was originally intended, one that's especially resonant today. Indifference does the most damage. Indifference to the suffering of others. Indifference to collateral damage, indifference to social safety nets, indifference for the well-being of the human family, indifference to the devastated earth, indifference to the fate of future generations. In calling for a Mother's Day, women like Mother Ann Jarvis and Julia Ward Howe were advocating for a day dedicated to care. Care for children, care for families, care for neighbors, care for people, care for this planet we share, not just in a sentimental way, but in a practical, transformative way. Feeling care and acting on it. Strengthening networks of care. Practicing justice so the great human family can live in peace. No matter what our gender or our relationship to mothers and mothering, Mother's Day can still be, for all of us, a call to care. At a time of rising cruelty and authoritarianism, indifference is a very serious threat. We need to reclaim care, not merely as a sentiment or as a special purview or responsibility of women, but as our birthright as human beings. So on this Mother's Day, in honor of all who cared before us, let's claim that birthright, to actively care, to grieve and to organize, to nurture and sustain life with love at the center. May it be so.